hugely valuable in your career in other fields, in particular peer review, conducting a fair and balanced assessment of a colleague's work. You're being asked, of course, to assess the suitability of this paper for publication in a particular journal. So I would say, as a starting point, you can ask yourself two key questions. Having agreed to do it, is this question important and interesting, or is it trivial to my research field? And are the methods appropriate? The number one reason, by the way, that papers get rejected from academic journals around the world is because of perceived issues in the method section. So when you're writing your next paper, make sure that your method section is watertight, bulletproof. Show it to colleagues. Ask people, have I put enough information into this section so that somebody else can read and understand my paper and repeat it if necessary? Is the question important and interesting? Are the methods appropriate? And I would say also that when you perform peer review, commenting on the work of other people, reading the papers of other colleagues, ask yourself whether you can do this in three different ways. Read the paper initially as somebody else in the field, try to understand the content and focus, then read the paper again as a competitor. Think about the competitive nature of the work. Can you remain balanced as you critically comment on somebody else's paper? And then thirdly, as a colleague trying to help. Somebody working in the same department, you're going to try to improve the quality. You're going to try to help those colleagues writing the paper to make the paper better. Far too few peer reviewers, in my opinion, think, how can I make this paper better? How can I make suggestions to help these authors get their paper published in this journal? Most people think, I've done it, I'm sure you've done it. Most people think, how can I find problems with this paper? How can I come up with reasons to make sure it gets rejected? So peer review is a key skill. I hope in this presentation this afternoon, we've talked a little bit about what peer review is. Open, single blind, double blind, how you can select peer reviewers for your papers, what those different editorial decisions may mean, and how you can respond effectively and manage rejection and appeals, as well as a little bit at the end there about how you might do peer review as an author. And so I will click on to the next slide and say thank you so much for listening to this presentation this afternoon, this evening. Gareth Dyke is my name. This has been a presentation brought to you jointly by Bentham Science. I've recently also started working, I haven't started working, but I will soon start working with a company called eDance. So I encourage you to have a look at them as well online, running online training, responsible for their training program. So if you found this webinar interesting, informative, and you'd like more in the future, then why not get in touch with Franz and I? We can help you to make sure that that happens. So we have a few moments, and I don't know if Franz or Luis want to turn back on their webcams and get involved, but I can see that we have some questions coming in. Don't be shy if you have questions, if you want to make any comments, or if you want to contribute to the discussion. I shall just quickly scroll down through some of the comments. Yeah, many journals no longer consider reviewers suggested by authors due to fraud. That's certainly the case, but often journal editors will look at the comments that authors make, and they will look at whether those colleagues would be suitable as peer reviewers, as I've mentioned in this talk. Luis is here, and I'm sure you want to say something.
All right, thank you very much, Gareth. It was a very nice seminar and informative, of course, many key points that we are always asking, when we are preparing a manuscript, and not only for the manuscript, but also for grant applications and all that kind of things related in academia. So thank you for that. There are many questions. Sorry. I was in fact writing one, and my question was, how many, or do you know the proportion of the journals that are really today doing double blind review?
That's a good question. Increasing numbers, and I think it's up to about 40% now of journals like around the world that at least offer the option of double-blind peer review, because most journals are now that are going down this road are giving authors the choice. Do you want single blind? Do you want double blind when you make submissions? So the Nature family journals are a good example of this. For example, like Nature Communications, for example, has been offering the choice to authors since, I think, 2016 or something like that. And the results of the surveys that have been published by both Nature and Elsevier have been very interesting, because actually most authors, when given the choice of double-blind or single-blind peer review, they still choose single-blind. They still want their identities to be known to the reviewers, unless they come from India, China, and some other developing countries, which is a very interesting result. So there are authors in some countries that feel that because they come from those countries, it's better that that's not known to the peer reviewers. So it's a very interesting results on the basis of that.
Sorry, that's a very good point, because do you have any guess of why those authors would prefer not to show the name and country?
I just know of surveys that have been published, and I can send colleagues the PDFs of those surveys, but I'm not sure those questions were asked. It's just metadata that was collected by journals that were offering that choice, like single blind or double blind. And most people, I think about 60-70% of authors still opted for single blind peer review, unless they came from certain countries. So that's an interesting result. The other thing to keep in mind, of course, if you're submitting a paper to a journal and you want double-blind peer review, make sure you anonymize your documents. Take out all of the track changes from your Word files and PDFs. Don't say in our recent work and then cite yourself, because that obviously defeats the purpose of getting your papers reviewed blind, because it's obvious to the reviewers who you are. So things to keep in mind as an author.
Yeah. There is a text sent by Dimitri, I guess is Professor Mikhailidis. And he said here is just to make it clear, current vascular pharmacology only charges a fee for original work and not for reviews. Okay. And I think this is very true, of course. And it's also very important because some of the points to decide which journal are we going to publish in is whether they are going to charge us a lot of money or even not too much money, but still charging us. So I think it's very nice that current vascular pharmacology has this option for reviews and very low fees, in fact, for original work. So it's very nice. Yes. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about asking the authors to pay increasingly amount of money every year? Is going up every year, so that is really stopping the people to go to certain journals.
This is the publishing industry, and I don't know if Franz wants to come back in and talk about this at all, but like somebody's got to make some money, and that's the problem. And now that we have these open access journals and publishers are providing the open access option to authors, that's of course meant that the authors have to pay the dreaded article processing charge, which would previously have been recouped by the publisher when they sell the content to libraries and so on. And so across the industry, the average cost, it's about $1,500 to get your paper published open access. If you get a paper accepted by Nature, if you're lucky enough to get one of your papers accepted by Nature, $10,000 is the cost that they levy to make that open access. Current vascular pharmacology, I was talking to Franz about this before we got started. Institutional cost is $1,080 per paper. Individual cost is $280, but with your 30% reduction And you can get that reduction by getting in touch with Franz, getting in touch with Luis, getting in touch with the editorial team at CPV. The cost for you will be down to $196 to publish in this journal. So Franz is here. He wants to chip in.
No, it's correct. The after discount, the personal subscription is $196. Correct. That's correct. We have about 132 journals in total, normal journals, classical journals, but they are all hybrid, so they can all be bought on open access. And then we have 44 pure open access journals. I just calculated the average APC, the average cost, and over all 170 plus journals, it's about $1,000. Yeah. It goes between 750, which is the cheapest, up to $3,725, which is the most expensive one.
Yeah.
So these are the numbers. We also have, of course, special open access licenses, transformative licenses that gives full open access to all our journals and without paying any APC. Then the APC cost is somehow built into the license cost paid by a government or by a consortium or by a big university. So we have a lot of options. And then, of course, we also have ebooks. Not so many, but about 900 plus, almost 1,000 ebooks, growing by about 100 ebooks per year. So these are numbers. If you want more numbers, just send me an email.
Maybe Franz, you'll put your email into the chat so that people have your email contact there.
Good idea.
Mm-hmm. There's another question here from Paola Moscoso, and she's making a comment saying, do you think that reviewers of low-quality journals are more critical than the reviewers of high-quality journals?
That's a great question. I think actually that reviewers are like that. You get a whole spectrum of different qualities of review, irrespective of the journal, actually. So, the only difference, or the big difference, I would say between low quality and high quality journals, and I presume you mean like impact factor when you talk about quality of journals. Like once you get up into the higher impact factors, you're looking at journals that have professional editors, professional editorial teams. So in our journal, like it's me, I'm an academic, I have other jobs, and so I'm doing my editing work and my processing of papers in my spare time, and that's characteristic of most academic journals. I'd say like 90% of academic journals. But the really high quality ones, Lancet, BMJ, Nature Science, these professional journals, they have teams of people, and so in those cases, like you can expect a thorough, effective, and hopefully balanced review process, although not always the case. But those kinds of editors are always more responsive to feedback from authors, I would say. Franz, do you want to say something? No, he came and went. Okay.
Continue with that discussion, Gareth. Do you think that this is a heavy question also. Do you think about what do you think about the young reviewers, young researchers doing a review compared with a more older one with more experience doing a review and the output that you get for a paper?
Yeah, this is a great question. This is a really good question as well. And actually, journal editors, what they're looking for, often you find, and this is what journal editors are trained to look for when they select peer reviewers, because actually the ideal situation with a paper is 1 or 2 reviews from a senior established academic in that particular field, and 1 or 2 reviews from a younger junior colleague just getting started in the field. And so studies have actually shown that balance of reviews, like 1 or 2 established colleagues and 1 or 2 junior colleagues, can actually make a much better peer review experience, because the senior colleagues are much busier and they have much less time. And so often, Professor Lettenstrom writing a review about a paper, he doesn't do such a thorough job as, postdoc Gareth at this university, who has more time, takes the process potentially more seriously. So you have that mix of experience, and there's the time factor, and so editors are trained to look for a balance in their reviews. Sure. That's a great question, though. Really interesting.
Good.
There is a question about if attendees get a certificate.
We can provide certificates of attendance. Yes, that's no problem. Absolutely. We'll do that. Yeah, we'll send you a certificate. Absolutely.
There's a comment from Giovanni Guevara, and I will read it. This said, there are several misconceptions about manuscript by Latin American researchers when it is reviewed and judged by native English-speaking peers.
Okay.
Yet when this manuscript was edited by some international English service.
Yes, good question. Good question. Now, if you use an editing service, I hope that you're using an editing service that provides you with a certificate of editing.